All right, so bankruptcy law.
Okay.
Not exactly a light topic, is it?
Not really a beach read.
But it's important.
Yeah.
And we're talking about some pretty big changes being proposed in India
Yeah. Yeah, big change.
to their Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code.
It's true.
And these changes, they could impact everything from
Yes.
investments to how businesses actually operate.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if you're listening to this, stick with us because we're going to break it all down.
We are.
This is a deep dive, we're calling it, into these proposed amendments.
Yeah.
We're going to try to figure out what they really mean for all of us.
Yeah, it's a good time to be talking about this because we have this discussion paper.
We do.
This discussion paper, 1/12/06/2024, verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a sneak peek, isn't it?
It is.
Behind the curtain.
It is. It feels like a sneak peek, and that's kind of unusual.
It is. It is. And for me, I work in Indian corporate law and insolvency resolution, and I can tell you this is not common to kind of get this insight before things become more official.
Right.
So,
Yeah, this discussion paper, we're digging into it, and it's like the powers that be are saying, hey, we're thinking about changing these rules. Tell us what you think.
Exactly.
So what's your take? Why are they doing this?
I think what they're trying to do is fine-tune the system
Okay.
that's still relatively new,
Yeah.
They're looking for that feedback
Okay.
before it's set in stone.
They're trying to get it right. So it's like a chance for people to chime in, maybe actually influence how insolvency gets resolved in India.
Yeah, and this is a critical time for anybody who's involved in corporate finance or law in India because this is, we're talking about how companies in financial trouble get back on track, and if things are really bad, how they get dismantled fairly.
Right, and the whole thing gets unwound.
That's right.
Okay, so let's get into these amendments.
Let's do it.
I think for the average person, even myself, these things can seem pretty dense.
They can.
But the first one we're going to talk about, Amendment 1.
Okay.
This one really seems to address a situation that sounds like it could get really complicated.
Yeah.
Really fast.
It can. It can. Currently, when a company in India is facing insolvency, you might need multiple valuation experts to figure out how much the company's assets are actually worth.
Right, because you got to figure out what they have and what it's worth.
Exactly. And we could be talking up to 6 different valuers.
6.
Yeah. Which, as you can imagine, that's not cheap.
No.
No.
Especially for a company that's already struggling. That just adds insult to injury.
Exactly.
You're already in a tough spot.
Exactly. And that's where this Amendment 1 comes in.
Okay.
It basically says, let's simplify this and primarily use one registered valuer for that entire process.
Okay, so one valuer to rule them all.
Exactly.
That's efficiency. I mean, that has to be a good thing.
It does streamline things, makes it simpler, it's more cost-effective.
But isn't there, I just think about this. Like,
Yeah.
if you've got one person doing this valuation, what if they miss something?
That's a very valid concern.
Right.
And I think that's why they built in this kind of safeguard, which is that the Committee of Creditors, the COSI, they can actually request 2 valuers.
They can.
If they think it's necessary.
Okay, so it's not like it's completely off the table.
No.
It's just that's kind of the default, is to go with one and then the COSI. And remind me, what is the COSI exactly?
So the COSI are like your oversight committee.
Okay.
They represent the creditors. And they're the ones that have to kind of say, yeah, we're good with this, or no, we want to go in a different direction.
So they're really a big deal in this whole process.
Yeah, they're a very big deal.
Okay, so they have the power to say, nope, we need a second opinion here.
Exactly. If they don't feel comfortable, they can say, we want somebody else to look at this. And this plays into the whole idea of being cost sensitive, right?
Right, especially with smaller businesses.
Especially with smaller businesses.
Right.
Because for them, every rupee counts.
Oh, absolutely.
And so Amendment 2 really tries to address that.
Okay.
So Amendment 2 is saying, okay, we want to make this process smoother, faster, cheaper, especially for smaller companies. And when they say smaller companies, they're talking about companies that have assets under Asen's crore, which is about 1.2 billion US dollars.
Got it.
So, still a good chunk of change, but
significant, but not massive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also for our MSMEs, those micro, small, and medium enterprises.
And the backbone of the economy.
Yeah, exactly. So for them, the default is you're going with one valuer. Unless you're COSI, can justify why you need to.
I see. So it kind of flips the burden of proof a little.
It does.
Instead of saying, we need to, it's like, well, can you prove you need to?
Exactly, because the idea is if we can do this with one and it's fair, then let's do it with one.
That makes a lot of sense, especially when you think about time.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
for a small business that's in trouble, time is really of the essence.
Oh, time is everything.
Getting through that process quickly
Absolutely.
could be the difference between surviving and not.
Exactly. And that faster resolution sometimes means the company can actually survive
Right, exactly.
instead of having to shut down completely.
Yeah, so it seems like it's really trying to address that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's very interesting how they're trying to balance this.
So we've gone from multiple valuers down to one.
Exactly.
And now Amendment 3, it feels like we're shifting gears a little bit.
We are.
We're moving from the valuers to now focusing more on the creditor.
Yeah, giving them a voice.
Right, and I found this whole authorized representative thing
Yes.
really intriguing. So
Yeah.
we really dug into those proposed amendments.
We did.
I mean, fascinating stuff.
It's really interesting to see how, like,
It is.
these technical changes can really have these huge ripple effects
Huge.
in the real world. Yeah.
It's easy to get lost in the weeds.
Yeah.
But let's connect the dots for our listeners.
Yeah.
What's the bigger picture? What could actually change in India?
Well, if these amendments go through, this could be a game changer. I mean, really.
Okay.
Think about those changes to the valuations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just streamlining that, especially for smaller businesses, could be huge, you know?
Right, because we talked about how expensive that can get.
Oh, absolutely. I remember this one case
Mm.
I was working on,
Yeah.
this small manufacturing firm. They were in trouble, facing insolvency.
Mm-hmm.
And just the cost of getting the valuations done
Yeah.
was killing them.
It was just making it worse.
It was making it worse. It was
Uh-huh.
like impossible for them to even think about restructuring because they're spending so much money just to figure out what they have.
Just to figure out where you're at.
Exactly. And so with these changes, amendments 1 and 2, that could all change.
So it's like removing a barrier to entry.
Yeah. To getting yourself back on your feet.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a benefit there for the business, but also the creditors, it seems like.
Oh, absolutely.
They get their money faster.
Faster and potentially more of it
Okay.
because, that company's not being bled dry by all these costs.
Interesting.
So it's a win-win,
It's more efficient,
way more efficient.
which also makes India potentially more attractive to investors.
Oh, absolutely. Because they see that.
Because they see
That it's a clear process. It's robust.
right.
So they feel better about putting their money in because they know if something goes wrong,
There's a way out.
there's a way out.
That's interesting. So it's like this ripple effect.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
we talked about Amendment 4.
It clarifies that guarantor liability, but it could also make lenders a little more, I don't know, nervous.
Yeah, hesitant,
Yeah.
Imagine you're a startup.
Okay.
You need funding.
Okay.
Banks might say, okay, well, we need more collateral now.
Right.
Or maybe the interest rate's going to be a little higher
Because that risk.
because the risk is perceived as higher.
Yeah, got to offset that risk.
Exactly. And so for those startups, for those smaller businesses, that could be the difference between getting the funding and not.
That's a great point.
And that's something that really needs to be considered carefully.
Yeah, I'm so glad they're doing this public feedback period
Me too.
because this is where,
It's so important to have these conversations.
right, get those different perspectives.
Yes, because it's all about balance,
Exactly.
We want a more efficient system,
Right.
but we also want businesses to thrive.
Right. So it's striking that balance.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
I feel like we uncovered a lot with these proposed amendments.
A lot of interesting things to think about.
Really got into the nitty-gritty of it.
Absolutely.
And what's great is that it's not a done deal.
Right.
We're in the middle of this public feedback period.
So important.
So what do you think?
Yeah.
Head over to our social media. Let us know what your thoughts are on these proposed amendments.
We want to hear from you.
We do. We'll put links in the show notes. Until next time,
Yeah.
keep exploring, keep learning, keep diving deep.